Hi, hello, and welcome to Rebel Unicorn Crafts. This week we're going to be doing a pseudo dirty cut, but not exactly pour, using these Sola Wood Flowers. So what you're going to need is we're going to need a canvas. I have put mine up on tacks so that it doesn't sit there. We're going to want a wood flower, one of these wood flowers. We're gonna need some scissors in order to trim that down so it sits more flush, and we're gonna need some hot glue. We'll need some paint. I'm gonna be using Craft Smart paints. I've got water, some little mixing cups, mixing sticks, and a pipette. So the first thing we want to do is affix this. We want to cut this down. You'll see that it is attached with thread, and there are some kind of sticking points. So we don't want to go too far or this whole thing might unravel, but we want to basically nip off the entirety of this kind of stem area. And then I'm using not a cool, should I put this? Let's put this kind of over here. I put that one over there. Let's see. So I'm using a hot, this is the hot level one, so it's not the cool hot glue, because I think it's going to have a better grip. So we're going to put a pretty big glob right where we want this, and let's just push it down. And if we need to, we can add a little more and just wait. We want this to be fairly upright. The Sola flowers that I have, they come in a bunch of different types of flowers, and some look like they would maybe hold just all the paint and not flow in between. So I picked one that it looks, well, I know because I've already tested it here, but the paint will actually flow around and out and down through the cracks, and will give us a really unique kind of texture. This one I did with Dick Blick paints, acrylic paints, and I want to see how it works with the craft paints. So we'll set this to the side and we'll start mixing some of our colors. And I'm using Craft Smart. I don't have a ton of problems with this Craft Smart paint cracking, other than the white. The white does seem to crack for me. So I have bought this Flow acrylic, which is not actually a fluid acrylic, so it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be mixed. It's just a slightly different texture. We still need to make sure it's the right consistency, but this one doesn't seem to crack as much. Okay, let's talk about how I thin my colors. There's a lot of controversy there. Okay, let's talk about how I thin my colors. There's a lot of controversy around thinning paint to work with it on the canvas and fluid painting. Most fluid painters seem to do this a little bit differently, and that's okay. That's one of the things I see that is really frustrating for beginners, is that there's not one consensus on how to do this. A lot of people use Floetrol, a lot of people use different additives, like Elmer's glue. They use different types of paint. I personally think that craft paint and water will get you there 90% of the time.
So I will show you how I do it. You do it the way that your supply list allows, your budget allows, or what works for you. I take and I mix my colors with just my paint first so that I have the desired color. Then I take pipettes just full of water and I add them to the paint. You really need to mix from the top down to the bottom. Oftentimes I see people just mix the top layer. Then I have a scrap piece of paper or some cardboard where I put a dollop on, and in between pipettes, I will test the consistency to make sure it is the consistency that I want. It needs to move around easily, but still be, viscous paint. And this is really trial and error. You're going to learn this by just practicing and finding what consistency works for you. If it's too thin, you might be able to see the canvas underneath it, so you might want to err slightly to the side of too thick. But just practice and it will get easier. I have seen tutorials that give instructions on what percentage of water. I don't like to do that because I find that each brand of paint is different, and sometimes even different colors within the brand require different hydration levels. Okay, so I decided I wanted to actually have, while I'm doing the pour over the flower, it up at an angle. So I actually kind of made that top left corner sit up higher so that the paint will flow down in a certain way. So I'll get better coverage of the canvas since I didn't place this right in the middle. Then I made a dirty cup, and I did put quite a bit of the paint in there, but I made sure I left some paint remaining in each one of the cups because I want to add in larger bands of individual colors that's not in the straight dirty cup that I'm going to be using. Okay, so my plan is to pour the dirty cup right over this flower. So let's see that on there. Ooh. And then in reverse, just because it looks cool. So what I'm doing is I'm alternating pouring layers of the dirty cup with straight layers of just bands of paint. And I'm trying to make sure that I cover all of the flower and I get it in all those different crevices where it's going to flow down so that it gets even more unique patterns. And because I have heightened up that one side, it definitely is helping it flow in the direction. So I'm getting more canvas coverage than I would have had I not done that. But at some point I will take that down and I will start adding more of the paint just to the sides so that I can make sure that I've got enough to where I can move this around without overstretching it. Once I think I have enough paint on the canvas, I'm going to go ahead and start stretching this. If I need to, I can add a little more paint to those sides that don't have as much coverage, just so we can get a good kind of flow with it. And let's see how it turns out. All right, once you get it all stretched out to where you want it, make sure you get enough of the paint to fall through those petals, because otherwise as it dries you'll get a real puddle underneath, and that's where you're going to risk cracking. Here's a little close-up. I think this turned out really neat, and I like the 3D aspect to it. If you're interested, Sola Flowers, they sell these, and they're not as expensive as I thought. I think they're quite a bit less than $1 a flower, depending on the type you get. So if you want to buy a couple, it won't break the bank to kind of add a few things to your paintings. I hope that you have a magically creative day. If you try this, let me know. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe.